Good afternoon to one and all. I welcome you all to ROOBAROO, discussion and talk on research opportunities in foreign university for PhD scholars. Organized by Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology of Patkar-Varde College. I take this opportunity to welcome our guest for today's session, Ms. Aditi Ghuge. Ms. Aditi Ghuge has completed her BSc and MSc in Biotechnology from Patkar College. Currently, she is pursuing PhD Biochemistry from Massey University, New Zealand.
Thank you so much, Rohini ma'am, for the invite and very warm welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our next guest is Mr. Bhav Kapur. Mr. Bhav Kapur has completed BSc in Biotechnology from Patkar College and MSc Biotechnology from Oulu University, Finland. He is currently pursuing PhD Structural Biology from Germany. Thank you, Mr. Bhav Kapur.
Thank you
We will
very
now
much for the
start the
kind invite.
Thank you so much. We will now start the session. Participants are requested to keep the camera and mic off. If you have any questions, you can put the questions in the chat box. Our guest will address the queries at the end of the session. Thank you. So we now start with the session. We move on to the first question. Why did you choose to pursue PhD?
Okay, so who would like to go first? Is it you or is it me?
Yeah, you can go first. That's all right.
Thank you. So basically, I wanted to pursue PhD because I have a great passion when it comes to basic science. And I have done my master's here in the Massey University, and my master's were more research based. So it really helped me to understand science more deeply. And the topic was quite interesting. So I decided to pursue my PhD. And with respect to career, I believe that when you have a PhD, you have a more job opportunities as compared to a master's student. And that's the one of the basic reason I wanted to do a PhD. And of course, the passion. Over to you, Bhav.
Yeah. So, in general, I'm a very curious person. During my bachelor's itself, when I was at Patkar, I recognized very early on that I would like to go for a PhD. I had a very keen interest in research and development. Although there have been some hurdles when it comes to thinking and opting for research, just because, of course, we can address all this later, but uh, yeah, research at its core somewhat suits my personality, I felt. And also I felt like I'm kind of like an introvert. So I tried to opt for such a field or opt for such a path that kind of suits my personality and my interest as well. So yeah, that was mainly the reason. So yeah, I think the key point would be here that I recognized very early on that I'm super curious in with respect to research.
Okay. We now move on to the second question. What is the basic outline of a PhD program in general?
Okay, so I'll start. The basic outline for New Zealand, since I'm in New Zealand, I can speak for the country New Zealand. We do here PhD around 3 to 3.5 years, and our research is heavily lab based. In the first year of research, you have an oral presentation where you write a research report on the research you have conducted over a year, and then you have to give a presentation, oral presentation with all other examiners. And when they think you have contributed enough to carry on your PhD, you are admitted to the complete enrollment of PhD degree. Until then, your degree is considered as a provisional year. And once you complete your provisional year, you are stepped to the next 2 years of your PhD, in which your PhD research will be more heavily lab based, and it will be, and the end of the 3 year, you have to start writing your thesis. Once you write your thesis, you are supposed to go under a defense examination. Once you defend your thesis, there will be some emendations given by the examiner. When I talk about the first year oral, there will be 2 to 3 examiners who will judge your research, who will judge how much you have understood, who will judge how can you talk in scientific community and are you able to express your ideas or your research in an easy fashion. And when I talk about the defense, there will be 3 examiners, one from Massey, one will be outside Massey but all over the New Zealand, and one will be anywhere from the world. So it's quite covered, I would say, because here you get to expose your research to the different parts of the world. So that's the overall outline of the PhD when I talk about New Zealand. Yeah, that's all for now. Like that's all for the PhD outline.
Yeah, so maybe I can carry on with my stuff. So mine is slightly complicated because my research funding for the project comes from the European Union. So the program is outlined for me in such a fashion that I have to work in the industry and in the academic sector of research and development. So because I'm mainly hired by Boehringer Ingelheim, which is a pharma company, so that for now is my main host where I'll be spending most of my time. And the overall duration would be around, I don't know, 3.5 years per se. Initially, it is for 3 years only, but then it depends on your supervisors and how the project goes. You might get an extension. Yeah. So on an average in Europe, a PhD maximally would last four years. Yeah. And then, like I said, for me, it's slightly complicated because I have to work for the industry. And then in between, I have to go for a secondment for 6 months to Romania. It's going to be online. So I'm working with a computational scientist as of now. Yeah, so that's for 6 months. And then I have to personally go to Austria and work there with another scientist on some other part of my project. And that's going to be for 3 months. And all this has to be done with submitting regular reports to the EU because, of course, they are providing funding. They need to know what's going on with the project. And there are often, I think, 3 to 4 annual meetings in the whole three-year duration. And along with that, I have to undergo 6 to 7 workshops wherein they'll train me with respect to entrepreneurship, future opportunities for R&D, and of course there'll be scientific conferences and everything like that. So this is with respect to what I am doing. I know a little bit about US as well, so I might tell you something which is quite similar to what Ms. Aditi spoke just now. So in US, I think I have some friends there who are doing their PhD as well. So it seems rather lengthy to me to opt for a PhD in US because the duration is longer. If you're able to get into a PhD program directly after bachelor's from India, which is rather quite difficult, then it's okay because in PhD in US, generally for the first 1.5, 2 years, depending on how fast you can complete the courses, that's basically like master's level stuff in there. And then you have to do some research work for 6 months to 1 year and then give the PhD candidacy exam, which already has been addressed by Aditi. And then you can continue with your research if you pass that exam, and at the end you have to defend. So the outline of the PhD program would vary depending on what university you take, which part of the world you are in, or what part rather, and what is your topic that you're opting for. For example, some PhDs might have to just do computational stuff, of course, depending on the thing. Some might have to work too much with mice or something else, for example, cells, so they'll have to stay in the lab for longer times. So yeah, that would, I think, summarize, and then we can address the specific questions later on.
Next question. Are the PhD research programs and master's research program the same?
All right, so I'll go first and we'll follow the same cycle for every question from now on. So for PhD program, as I stated, it's hardcore research, but when you're doing a master's, you have certain coursework to do. When I say coursework, it means like some papers, And in those papers, you also have a little bit of research course where you will be doing a paper for, like, let's say semester one, but in semester two, you will be coming to the lab and you will be writing a research paper at the end of your year or end of the semester. It's totally depends on the student what they want to opt for, because here you have that what you ability to choose the papers which you want to do masters with. So you can choose so many electives which are like a very topic specific electives. So let's say when I was doing my masters here, I was more keen about genetics, so I choose the paper which will lead me to the genetic research, and you have that thing here. But in masters, there is another type also where you will simply choose to do a masters by research. It will be 120 credit and it will be on the top of your coursework. So master's research is half and a half, whereas your PhD research is only lab-based, where you have to design your own experiments, you have to look for all the literature search by yourself, and you have to optimize too. In master research, you will be guided by your principal investigator and PhD students, but in the PhD research, you will be having a co-supervisor and a principal investigator. So you have to have annually minimum 2 meetings with your co-supervisor, and every month a meeting with your supervisor to discuss how your progress is going on. So that's the huge difference between PhD and masters. Next, over to you, Bhav.
Okay. Yeah. So, masters, like she already addressed most of the things. So the terminologies might differ a bit. So for example, there is masters non-thesis, which is really great for programs like food science and stuff, because in the end you'll be directly working mostly in the industry. Very few people opt to go for hardcore research and later on go for PhD. So in for example, in such a scenario, that kind of thing will be really nice. So non-thesis, as again Aditi already addressed, it's all coursework. You take different types of courses. The courses will vary depending on what university you go to. What is generally the thing that goes on there in the university? It might be some assignments that you have to do, for which you might have to do some research, a little bit of reading of the literature. Some might be like whatever has been taught in the course. You have to just go and sit for some examinations, which can be either oral or written, or both. Yeah, so that's for non-thesis. For thesis masters, so I have done a master's via research, and first year of my studies was mostly coursework. Actually, not really first year, like 9 months. Yeah, that was coursework. 3 months was different lab rotations. So I chose a master's program where I could get more hands-on experience, because when I was in India, we have limited hands-on experience as compared to students who are studying abroad already, like for us abroad. So because they have a lot of research funding and everything, they can easily get more practical experience here. So that's why I chose such a program. So let's say 9 months of coursework, 3 months of lab work, hardcore, and also coursework involved some lab work as well. So it was like integrated. And then in the next year, like that's the second year of my master's, I did um, acquire 60 credits, which is equivalent to 1 year of work, by research. And then at the end, I had to write my master's thesis and also defend my master's thesis. So when it comes to answering the question directly, are these programs same? Well, in PhD, in certain cases, you might have to undertake 30 credits worth or 15 credit worth of course, which can be spread across 3 to 4 years. In many cases, not. So, for example, I do not have to do any coursework in PhD. I just have to focus on my research and get results and defend my PhD. That's all. But the core idea of research is the same. When you're doing a master's research, you kind of understand how the workflow is, like what, how to answer questions, like scientific questions at a good level, how to even ask them, frame it in your mind, how to have discussions with your supervisor and learn from them. And then in the PhD, it's kind of the same thing. It's just amplified. Your question is much more difficult. Uh, yeah, you are kind of not really all alone. You have to have frequent meetings, of course, but yeah, you are given the complete responsibility of a project, which is not so, which might not be the case for master's research. Sometimes you'll just be addressing half of the project, and the other student might be doing the other half for their masters. Yeah. So that summarize, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. How could one improve their SOP, or the statement of purpose, for getting admitted in a PhD program?
So for SOP, it really depends on the university, like which university you are trying to apply to. But the basic things I can tell you right now is be honest. Don't overpromise something which you really can't do, first. Second, you have to talk about your qualification, how you came to know about the topic, then why you are so interested in the topic, how did you general interest in that topic. Then if you have any awards or any scholarships or any hands-on training you have done while pursuing your degree, you can mention that. And if you're applying to a specific lab, because sometimes the PhD positions are put in on a various websites, and you can find them through Google, like find a PhD for abroad. It's one of the websites. So there you will have an email address of the supervisor who has a PhD position offer open, and you can simply go through that supervisor's homepage if they have. I'm sure they have, and you can read their research. And if you want to be more intrigued about their research, I would recommend you read through their articles and you try to understand what they are talking about, and then you can tell them how this topic is very fascinating for you. So these are the things you can do, and that will make your SOP stand out more than any other applicant. Yeah, that's what I think. Over to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. So for me, I think also being very honest with what you know, and not to lie on your CV or SOP or cover letters. Um, so whatever skills you have, whatever you are interested in, how you became interested in that particular topic, and then it gets very dicey because it depends on what type of position you have applied for. So, for example, if it's a job opening, for example, that was the case for my thing, and then whenever there is a clear job opening and you know what you will be working on, there is a certain skill set which is mentioned in the job description. So you try to include maximum overlapping points with the skills that you already have, which is present in the job description, so that even if your CVs or sorry your SOPs are getting automatedly selected uh, by some scanning machines or something, that is generally not the case for R&D people. But yeah, people like to uh, reflect things. If whatever is mentioned in the job description, if you just write that down, mostly that's a pretty good standard thing to do. But yeah, of course, don't lie. If you have those skills, then great. Otherwise, and also sometimes if you just have 50% of the skills of what they're asking for, just go for it because nobody expects you to know everything. Everyone knows that you're just a student, of course, and even during the PhD and even after the PhD, you'll still be kind of like a student. Trust me. Um, yeah, and like as you already mentioned, so this is um, for places where there is a job description and everything. Then sometimes what goes on, for example, in University of Vienna, is that they ask for an open call, and you have to send in a very general SOP there. So because there will be interview rounds where you'll get to meet the group leaders if your application is selected, and that is when you'll actually decide. And in such cases, they ask your preferences. For example, who would you like to work with? So whosever name you are going to give there, that your application will be passed on to 3 or 4 of them, and then they'll go through it. So of course, make sure that you go through these group leaders' website really carefully. You understand what they're working on, and then you really present to them super honestly that why do you want to work with them. And of course, some praise here and there helps, but just understand that don't do too much of bootlicking. People hate that. Yeah, that would be one thing. And then the other one could be unsolicited applications, wherein there is no job like no job openings. There is not an open call, you just like some group leader and you want to send in something. So in that case as well, it has to be super specific. Try to tailor all your applications specific for a job, because if you don't do that, the chances of you getting a really nice PhD program would be hard, I feel. So make unique applications for everyone. It is of course time consuming, but that is really important because the people, they have been going through a lot of applications. They have 20 years of experience and everything, so you can identify who has put in what amount of effort in preparing SOPs and everything. So yeah, genuinity and honesty. That, that's
I
that's all I feel.
sorry to interrupt, but I would also like to add one point. When you are writing your SOP, do not like ask someone else to write your SOPs. Do not do ghost writing, because saying that your group reader has 20 years or plus experience in that area, that means if I'm reading your SOP, I would also know that it is a ghost written. It's not your honest opinion, and that is not a good impression on a PI or your supervisor. So that thing can be picked up. Also, when you are writing, do not speak a lot about the fancy Shakespeare language. I would say not so many quotes like he said that, he quoted like this. No, you are applying for a job. That means your application has to be specific, and you have to be legitimate, I would say, rather than saying, oh, I have came across like this and that. No, be to the point, and that is the thing which they want, because no one has the time to read your SOP for like good 10 minutes. They will only skim through it, and if they find your application is acceptable enough, then only you will get a call back. And yes, as he said, there might be some interview rounds, but it also depends on the principal investigator whether they want to take an interview or not. In certain cases, they will definitely ask you certain questions. And when they will ask you for an interview call, make sure that you have a very basic knowledge of whatever thing you are trying to do. Like if I'm doing something with biochemistry, I really need to know my biochemistry papers, which I have studied during my master's and bachelor's. Sorry, that's all from me.
Okay. Move on to the next question. Which exam students should give if they want to do PhD?
Okay, so when it comes to exams, it also differs from country to country. So for New Zealand, it's mostly PTE, which is for English Language Proficiency Test, and IELTS is a similar test which detects how much proficient you are when it comes to English. So these two exams, and even if you go to the university website, there will be a requisite exams. Like they will say that we need this much exam with this much of band. Let's say for Massey, if you want to apply for a PhD, you need minimum band 7 for any course. As you go higher on the academic ranking, your band score will increase. So it totally depends on the university. It totally depends on the country. For USA, you need GRE and TOEFL or any combination of English language. So that's the thing. But for New Zealand, basically, you just need any one of professional English language tests. That's all. And another thing, if you're applying for a PhD in a tissue engineering or any other course which is related to engineering, you might need a GRE. So when you're choosing which course you want to apply to, I would recommend please go through all the requirements which university has asked and then work accordingly. Yeah, that's all from my side. You can go ahead.
I don't think I have anything to add here. You already said everything. It's mostly the English proficiency tests which are required. Yeah, I don't think, and maybe US has much more stricter requirements like GRE, but again, you already mentioned that. And one thing, yeah, I think also you mentioned the other thing, which is regarding having license to some stuff. For example, a lot of people who work with animals and everything, you must have animal handling license, which should be internationally recognized or recognized at least in one of the continents, which then can be transferred to an international status. But this is like, these are like very specific cases, and as already Aditi mentioned, just go and check the program website and see what the requirements are. These things are generally written over there. Yeah, that's all. Nothing really to add here.
Okay, we move on to the next question. What difficulties did you encounter during your PhD program?
Difficulty as such is honestly the process could be really exhausting first, because you need to find where exactly your heart lies when it comes to research, because you don't want to enter a program where you think, yeah, it's fine, I'm getting a funding, it's all good, the lab sounds good and all. But when you enter the lab and you realize, oh no, this is not what I wanted, because what you see on a paper is not exactly what's going to be. So I would ask, specifically go and talk to the supervisor or write an email to a supervisor, or maybe go through the research paper. That's the one of the best way you can do. So by that you will know that what techniques you can learn. So that's one of the difficulty here when you're trying to find your PhD program. Second, the process, as I said, is exhausting. Each and every university has a different requirement. On the top of that, even your principal investigator might ask you for some additional courses. So make sure that you satisfy those. And of course, the visa could be really exhausting. So yeah, and when you get a PhD, when you move to a country, it will take a while for you to understand how exactly the lab works, what is the culture, or it will take a time for you to accustom to the environment and everything. So the first few months will be really like tedious and overwhelming for you, but if you keep going, I'm pretty sure that you can get through that cycle. That's all from my side. You can speak now.
Yeah. Um, so I don't want to demotivate you, but I don't think anyone really knows if they made the right decision for like what topic they're for not really what topic, but what specialty they're really going for. And even while doing your PhD, I think it's very hard to be satisfied with your decision and questioning your choice every quarter or so.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
um, so I think that the main thing would be to find a good supervisor, which is very hard because we do not have enough experience in their field. It's very hard to judge who is good and who is not. And then it is also hard to understand what type of nature does your supervisor or the people who you are going to work with have. Will you be really compatible or not? But this is anyways checked in interviews by them, and if they feel you're suitable or not, then okay. Yeah, but from your side, you will never be sure about many things. So I think that there is a bit of risk factor and surely some amount of luck involved there. Uh, but a but a good guiding factor would be if a supervisor has published a lot of publication, is famous in his or her field, then okay, maybe you are safer, but not really every time, because just because somebody is excellent at their academics, maybe their personality is not so warm and welcoming. And also, as Aditi said, that the culture might be different. So how the student-teacher relationship or the student-supervisor relationship is in India might be very different from how is it here in different countries in general. The second thing would be it's not really easy to find a job, I would say. Uh, Sometimes you have to wait for months. You'll get a lot of rejections. So that phase is really demotivating. I'd say that one should look for PhDs really early on. For example, if you are writing a thesis and if you still have 3 months of time or something, then already start looking for, applying for jobs and look for jobs like 5 months prior. If you really want the best job on the market, I think this is the strategy, and this is what I had done. I think I went through so many pages, different group leaders and everything. I did not apply to many jobs. I would say I was rather lucky to get enough in the initial few tries itself. And then, of course, the interview process is also a bit, I don't know, overwhelming, I could say, because sometimes this can be of multiple rounds. So you might have to give 2 or 3 rounds. For me, it was 3 rounds of interviews. Uh, so I think from my interview experience, I think that at least I had to give 2 rounds everywhere. But yeah, this would be like very specific. So, and while PhD, let's not talk about the difficulties. For sure, whoever opts for it, they're going to know and enjoy them, and maybe cry sometimes too. So, I think that's all I'd like to say.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to add, like PhD is not a smooth ride, and if you know that you are going to do it, irrespective of anything happening, I mean, you cannot expect that, yes, I will do my 9 to 5 job in the lab and then I will go and enjoy my social life. For 3 to 5 years, imagine you do not have a social life because you really need to get the work done. And second thing, if you think that, yes, if I work 9 to 5, I will get results every day. No, that's not the case, because there could be a time where you are working for at least 9 months and you are have nothing on your hands or nothing on your paper. So that time you will be more like, why did I choose this? You will be self questioning your decision, and then you will be like talking to other PhD candidates, and they will be like, oh, I got results for this. Oh, I did this. I got this. And even your own lab mates, they will be having a very nice essay, very nice question blocks, and then you will be like, oh my god, my gel is not getting prepared. What I'm gonna do? So never compare your progress with someone else. That's the first thing, and that's a very difficult part to do when you are doing your PhD, I would say, because we are in the world of a competition, and we always want to do something better than the other. So always remember, PhD you're doing for yourself, by yourself. So if you compare your growth in the PhD term, in the PhD program with someone else, you're always going to be like demotivated. So never do that. And every day you will come home, and every day you have to go to the lab next day thinking that finally I can do something today. And always appreciate your small success, because you never know how much efforts you have put in the past life when you were doing that thing. So yeah, I mean, self motivation is more important when you are doing your PhD. There will be no one will come and tell, hey, it's fine, you have done this today, but because your supervisor needs results. You only have that one thing in your mind. They need results. They will guide you in certain time, but not always. So most of the time you are on your own. So self motivation is really important, and it's a very difficult part, honestly. Yeah. And
What's the next question? Is PhD pursued only for research purpose?
this is a very diplomatic question, I would say, because some people like to do PhD because they really want to go into R&D section, and some people like want to do a PhD because they want to be a part of a university. So there are two ways here. So those who want to go to pharma company, I think Bhav will able to tell you more about that because he's doing in a pharma company. But university, it works differently. Once you do a PhD, you have to also teach along the side, because that comes with the PhD like degree. So not technically, because when you are a PhD student, you are allowed to teach your undergrads. So it can also give you some academic experience, and you can go as a professor once you complete your postdoc, not immediately, once you get more experience in the field. Second, with the industry part, there are so many companies which hire PhD doctoral uh, students, not doctoral students, the doctoral, the person who has completed his or her doctoral study for other purposes, like developing a code of conduct when it comes to any epidemic, pandemic, or anything. It depends on the specialization of your PhD, honestly. So clinical trials may ask you to come and lead a group, not like a immediately a group leader, but they will ask you to teach certain amount of students and tell them how to overcome this problem. So yeah, so that's like a very nice question. It totally depends where you want to go after you complete your PhD. It's a very important thing from my side.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the one word answer would mostly be yes to this question. Uh, yeah, but there are also some underlying factors. For example, if you just want to show to the world that oh you have a PhD, maybe even for that purpose, some people do it. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. I really don't know if you're doing for that reason. How and from where do you get the motivation from? But yeah, mainly for research purpose. And as Aditi already said that if you want to go for a government job, for example, making public policies or something, then PhD is for sure helpful because otherwise these jobs are generally taken by medical doctors. And if you have a PhD, then you might have a chance to land a really nice position in the future, of course, in the very late stages of your career. Then when it comes to industry, with masters, I think you can only get so far. Uh, with a PhD, the chances of you getting to higher positions, for example, managing other researchers and everything, and becoming the director of research, and then becoming the director of directors and something like that, then for sure you need a PhD, because without a PhD, I feel that uh, the reliability factor and the accountability factor that is bestowed upon you is very less without a PhD. With a PhD, you get all these things, and what really happens is that, for example, if you are a super smart person and if you only have a master's, and for example, if you're working in a group of 4 or 5 people and there are some other PhDs, then what might happen is that the credit might be taken away from you, I feel, a little bit. I'm not saying that that really happens everywhere in all the cases and it happens where I work. It's not the case, but I feel that the PhD thing gives you an edge over other people who do not have it. So for that reason, it is really essential if you want to have a really nice career in the industry in R&D. If you don't want to have it, then of course you can still do a PhD and go for management, but then immediately after the PhD, do not continue research, and you still have a chance to switch to management like stuff, or some other things. So yeah, but mainly for research purpose. One word answer is yes.
Next question. What do you plan to do after you complete your PhD?
A frequently asked question to a PhD student nowadays. But yeah, mostly my answer will be I would like to do a postdoc because I really want to continue with the R&D research in the future. And yeah, so doing a postdoc will be my first option. But in certain situations, if I'm not able to get any postdoc, then I would rather switch to industry path more. And yeah, that's all for my answer, I guess.
Yeah. So what I plan on doing, um, I'm actually not sure because of multiple reasons. Of course, there is one path which I can take, which might lead me to the postdoc field. But then again, I have a choice for academic or industrial postdoc. Uh, but probably I sometimes feel that I should leave R&D, and not because there is some problem with the field or something. I just feel that I want to try something else as well. I'm a very curious person, like I said first. So now I'm getting curious about all the other things that other people are doing. Something that where I will be able to really put my PhD to use would be management consulting in the healthcare sector. I feel that that is a good option, and maybe for that I'll have to do MBA or not. I don't know. Recently, I think one of the students who did his masters in the same industry where I work now, um, he completed his PhD in Switzerland, and then he got a really nice consulting management job directly after PhD without any MBA with the top 3 companies in the world. So with one of the top 3 companies, I think it was Bain and Company. I don't remember, but so I think me shifting towards the management side or public policy side would be something that I would probably like to do, but I'm not sure. And also, really honestly, I don't think I will ever will. I ever will. Yeah. So yeah, that's all from my side.
Next question. What are the benefits of getting doctoral degree over the master's degree?
Um, as Bhav already said that there are several benefits. Like if you're doing something, like if you came across a very interesting finding, there are the chances that the credit will be taken by someone else. So that's one of the thing. And also when you're doing a PhD, you have a more research exposure if you want to go for a R&D job as compared to a master's degree. Because if you look at the coursework of a master's degree, you have a very limited research span in your entire course, and that doesn't account when company wants to hire someone with the experience of 3 or 4 or more than that actually. So it is best, like if you do a PhD, if you are willing to, just to get more, like just to get an idea about how to troubleshoot certain things. Because masters, as I said before, you are already like spoon fed several things, so you really don't know the basics of it, how that construct has been made or how one thing has been given to you don't know the background history of it. But when you are doing a PhD, you are able to go to the core of it, and then you know. Then I mean, the knowledge-wise, PhD degree holds more as compared to a master's. So definitely masters would help if you really want to do R&D job or any other job, and if you want to have a good salary scale at the later, like when you are applying for a jobs. So yeah, that's what I feel.
For me, it's everything is the same. I agree completely with you, Aditi. I think the salaries are better. You have a lot of different opportunities when you have a doctoral degree. If you want to open up your own startup and if you want to call yourself as a leading researcher, then over there just to show to the public as status signaling, then I think for sure doctoral degree helps there as well. In academia, if you want to become a professor, then you of course need the doctoral degree. Yeah, so
And I
I,
think, sorry to interrupt, I think the
that's
rules
fine.
for the jobs are really changing these days. Everyone wants, like the big universities, they want to hire someone with a doctoral degree more than someone with a master's degree because they want to increase their ranking in all over the world and subject wise. So, of course, the job opportunity for PhD is more, but in case you have only a master's degree, what you can go up to is a research technician or a research associate when you are in a pharma company or something, because they will trust you, but at the same time they will not trust you. They won't find you capable enough to lead four different people. So that's the difference here. If you have a PhD, they at least know that yes, you are capable of it because you know things to the core. It really doesn't matter when you have 5 years of experience and someone with a PhD comes for the same job. They will of course hire a PhD candidate or PhD degree holder. So that's the difference here. So if you have a
Mhm.
master's, you are a part of the 10, 100, thousands of people. But when you have a PhD, you're always on the edge of like that hierarchy or top of the hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah, very true. So I think the job market with respect to comparison between doctoral degrees and master's degrees is much more stabilized in US. Of course, the preference is always for the doctoral degree when it comes to R&D, but when you don't really want to do like hardcore R&D and if you feel like, okay, maybe master's degree is enough for you, then I think the master's degree might really be okay. And what you might do is you might branch out into different other fields because, of course, a master's degree is also respected enough, not just in R&D. That's all. But yeah, so uh, I think that's all. That's all.
Okay. Next question. What things we should consider while selecting an institution to apply for PhD?
When it comes to applying for PhD, as I said, like if I was an applicant, I will definitely look at the project first thing. As Bhav mentioned, you will not know everything right away, but the thing is, you can at least find like how much research the supervisor or the group leader has conducted, and how often he has publishing in those research areas. That is one of the most important thing I feel, because you don't want to be a part of a group where the students are doing research for years and years, and their research is coming out after 10 or 15 years after they have conducted the research. Because in research section, as the day passes, the quality of research every time increases because we know the new techniques are coming up. So there is a lot of competition happening. So you want to be a part under a supervisor who is willing to publish articles, at least let's say 2, 3 articles in a year with a specific topic. And that's first thing I would look. Second I would look is overall university ranking, because yes, it doesn't matter at all like that much, but it will matter when you are trying to apply for a job. Because imagine if someone, let's say person X has done PhD from Harvard and person X like me who has done PhD from Mass University, the employee will hire Harvard Institute, not from me. That's a different aspect, like he will look at the resumes and all, but the name of the institution also plays a major role here. Second, doing a PhD your own is kind of difficult and it's not pocket friendly because you have to look for yourself, then you have to pay for your academic fees and all other parts. So I will rather choose an institute which is the government funded, so I can apply for a scholarship, or the supervisor who has a lot of funding. So those are the things you want to look before you want to apply. Because when they publish or when they advertise the PhD opening, they also mention whether you have a scholarship for this position or not. So I will also look into that very quickly. Yeah, that's all I think.
So I think rightly said, very rightly said that we should first look for the supervisors and the project, because who you work with and what you work on is much more important than where you are working. The way you are working part gives you the status and everything, and then later on, to find the first job or something after PhD, your life might be a bit easier. But in the long run, I don't think it is really that important. But I think some of the parts already Aditi touched upon. For example, publication that the supervisor has, how often they publish, how often do the PhD students graduate from there, how many students have graduated from that lab. The more famous the lab, the better the chances of them publishing something, because generally these people have a lot of funding, and because they have a lot of money, they can go and do a lot of projects, and much more challenging projects. And if you have a success in like a little bit of success in such challenging projects, then you can have easy publications. So that is one thing. And second, when you work with really good people from your field where you want to do your PhD in, these people have really strong connections, so the collaborations part and everything, that will like be super helpful to you. I can give you one example from my own project as well. So I'm mainly an experimentalist. I only do experiments in the lab, but because of how the circumstances played out, I'm currently also working with a no, actually she's a theoretical physicist. And then we were looking for someone to make we needed to cover some other aspect of the project, which is generally not covered by my company so much. So she provided us with a really nice contact who is one of the top guys in that kind of area. So when you opt for really nice people to do your PhD with, you can get such kind of edge over other PhD students, and your chances of having a successful PhD increases by, I don't know, by almost 100%, I would say. So I think, yeah, these things, and of course, even more than the supervisor, I would say the project and your own interest in the project is very critical. Because if you get bored after reading, I don't know, 10 pages about that protein or whatever you are doing your PhD on, then yeah, I think you should rethink your choice. But yeah, so number one thing would be the project. Number two would be the supervisor, probably equal weightage to both. And then comes the institution. And trust me, institution is very important. So like she already said, if you have a degree from Harvard or something, then yeah, I mean, just tell the people after a PhD that, oh, I'm a Harvard graduate, don't send your resume, and probably you might still get the job. Who knows? But yeah, that's the impact of the status and everything. Um, that's all I'd like to say on this.
And I would like to add another point to it. If you are very dicey about whether you really want to be a part of that lab or not, I would suggest, because when you go through your group leaders, they also have a section called as a team member. So what you can do, you can find one of those team members. They might have a LinkedIn profile or any other kind of, because most of the times on the university website they will definitely have their email addresses. So what you can do, you can, out of your interest, of course, you can go and talk to the person, and then you will know how exactly, like how frequently the meeting between a PhD scholar and a supervisor is happening, how productive the meeting is. Of course, they will not tell you about their research or everything, but they can share their overall journey with you. So that will also help you to find whether you really want to be a part of certain group or not.
Maybe just to add to that, when you get the job, if they have not scheduled an interview with the other lab members, maybe you can ask them to do that. Or if you have an opportunity to go and personally visit the lab before you start working there, then that would be really great too. Uh, yeah, but generally, the relationship between you and your supervisor is the most important one. The other things you can still, I don't know, compromise, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on to the next question. What are the requisites of pursuing a PhD abroad? Does it have a benefit over pursuing PhD in India?
Okay, so we will divide this question into different parts basically. So let's answer the first question. The requisite for the PhD program will differ from university to university, because it mentions of the university they offer scholarship. So when they are offering scholarship, of course they set some target, or they set some boundaries, and over that boundaries you have to be qualified. Second, when it let's imagine you got that position, but now your next mode of contact is your principal investigator. So that in this case, your supervisor might ask you to produce certain coursework or enroll. Like they might ask you to take undertake one paper, which is good, which will be like communication and sciences and all. So it really depends on your principal investigator or supervisor. So that's the part. Like that's the answer for the first part. And does it have a benefit over pursuing PhD in India? Yes, it definitely has, because you are in a different country. First, your course of like span of PhD you will be doing is very less, like let's say 4 years maximum, as compared to 5 or 6 or 7 years in India. Like I had some friends who are doing PhD and they are still doing PhD since 2016 and they are not done yet, and we are in 2022. So definitely yes. And of course, when you are in different country, you know different people, and it's very easy for you to collaborate with some other people or some other researchers, because you are in that land and you know whom to ask, when to ask, and how to ask. So I would definitely say yes, it is a beneficial. Yeah.
Okay. What are the requisites? So I think we've already spoken enough about the academic stuff. It's mainly check the program website, give the English exam if you're going to Europe. If it is US, then English exam plus a GRE. Uh, yeah, but apart from that, the important things would be uh, question yourself if you'll be able to live alone. Uh, like what type of a person you are, how much socializing do you need. For example, me personally, I don't socialize too much, so it's rather easier for me in comparison to other people, I feel. Uh, how much stress are you able to handle alone? You might be far away. You are, of course, going to be far away from your family and some of your old, really good friends. So, can you handle that? There will be some really depressing days or depressing nights, I should say. So yeah, I think the person knows the best if they'll be able to handle that. Of course, we can call our family and everything. Nowadays, technology is really nice, so you don't really miss them so much as such. But if you really need that personal touch, and if you want to be immersive in your experience, then of course you need the person beside you. But so I think this is one of the important things to think about before even opting for a PhD abroad. Then the other thing would be to think about if you even want to do a PhD and why are you even doing it. Yeah, but anyways, I'll stick to the question. And I think yeah, the main thing is will you be able to live abroad? Then checking for the funds and everything, and if you are getting enough salary there to sustain yourself, and then try to choose your. I would say try to choose the city or the location, not just depending on not just thinking in mind about the career, but also a little bit about the social thing. Because for example, now I'm in a very remote area of Germany. I should not still call it remote. It's much better than remote places of India, but you get the point. Like it's not the main city, so sometimes I feel that I miss the main city vibes. And yeah, then your mood is also kind of dependent on that. So just understand where you're going and what might be the I don't know outcomes, possible outcomes there. Just do some research about that place on the internet. Nowadays, a lot of things are available on the internet, so use that to your advantage. Does it have any benefit over pursuing PhD in India? So the first direct thing that comes to my mind is salary. Even if you adjust it to GDP per capita and purchasing power parity of India with respect to other first world countries, you still cannot match the amount of savings that you can have abroad and the type of lifestyle you're going to live. Uh, Generally, in India, I don't think that so much budget is allocated to R&D. We are still behind in that, so understand this thing. And only maybe the top institutes like IIT, IISER, and stuff like that. Maybe they have a little bit of funding, but I do work with people who have done their masters from these places, and from their experience, they said it's more than other institutions in India, but not enough in comparison to the foreign institutions. So the funding part is really important in R&D because the machines itself cost so much, and if you're not even able to get a chance to handle them, like to have a personal machine, for example, I do a lot of protein purification, so I have my own ACTA that only I use. This is not even very common in academic in foreign institutions. So generally you have to share, but because I'm working in the industry and it's one of the top industries, so I get this advantage, and this is a very big advantage with respect to other PhD students all across the globe. So understand that there are these factors, do calculations and everything, and then you'll have the answer for yourself. But I think the justice would only be given to the topic when we really have somebody on board who is doing a PhD in India, and we can have an open discussion with that person too. But I feel that yes, there are a lot of benefits. Yeah.
And I would also like to add one point here. When you compare your research topic with someone who is doing PhD in India, it could be a possible sometimes that your colleague who is doing PhD in India could be using a very advanced technique, but not like you are not using that many advanced technique, but your colleague is. So that time, do not fall back. You then do not think that yes, I wish I could have done my PhD in India, because you have already taken that decision and you can't go back. So that motivation is really, really important, because any knowledge is not useless, because sometimes you also have to understand that the some machineries, they are very automated, so you really don't know what's going inside that machine. I know you can study the principle and everything, but if something goes wrong with that machine, you have to do everything manually, and that's where the other research comes in, and that's where makes you master of that topic. It's not about the how fancy machines you are using at the moment, but it's about the how much topic you are learning in the detail. Sorry, nothing offensive against you, Bhav, but it's just my opinion. And yes,
No,
industry
that's fine.
have,
I get it.
yeah, industry have more funds, so yes, of course they could afford. But when it comes to a PhD, academic university PhD, you have your different challenges, because industry, it's already well established. They have lots of money coming in, but for university, it's totally different story. So you have a very less resources, and you have to get your things done in very that less resource. So it also teaches you like being critical in everything you are doing, and it also teaches you how to be self-analyzing your each and every step. So yes, both things have different advantage. And when it comes to living alone and all, once you get used to it, it might be beneficial, but I wouldn't say this ride is smooth. You have to overcome your challenges, and you, again, if you're willing to commit to a PhD, you can definitely do it. PhD is all about being consistent and resilient. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you so much. Any question? We will now move on to the question answer session. Students, participants, if you have any queries, please post your questions in the chat box. Okay, I think there are no queries. Thank you so much. I would like to thank both our alumni guests for guiding our students and helping them gain more insights about the research fields. Thank you for making yourself available on a holiday for this session. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for their active participation. With this, I end today's session. Looking forward to the next session with new alumni members. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Bhav.
thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Sure.
Bhav and Aditi, thank you for joining.
The earlier disturbance, I was just trying to figure it out how Google Meet works, because I never use that.
It's okay. It's okay. Completely fine.
How are you, Neha, ma'am? Like,
I'm
it's
fine.
been a
I'm
long
fine.
time.
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Like, yeah.